what's happening, y'all? That's a tune called Give Us a Drink of Water, probably made most famous by the Bothy Band. That's where I learned it, where most people that I know learned it from. We've also been playing it with my band, which has been kind of fun, and I thought it would make a good example tutorial for talking about variations. It's something I've touched on a few times, but it's been a while, and I don't know if I've really hit on it with the flute, and definitely not with the slip jig. I think there's some interesting rhythmic conversations to be had there. Stick around, we will break it down. I'm going to run the basic melody real quick on the keyless flute. This would apply to the whistle. That way some of these techniques I think would work with any instrument. I'm going to come back and talk about what you can do with the keyed flute, because there are obviously some advantages there, some different things that you can do, but there's plenty of stuff that you can do with a tin whistle or a keyless flute. So here's the basic melody, starting with the A part, of course. Now the B part jumps up to that high G. Now that does have a bit of a difference in the second time, the second time through, so I'll run that. So it does sort of that cool little walk down thing, which is ripe for variations. When we're talking about variations, I think a lot of folks will assume that that just means changing up the melody. And that's certainly a part of it, and we'll talk about that, but it also means changing up the phrasing, changing up the ornamentation. So let's just dive in. Here's how I would do the A part. Right off the bat, you probably heard when I played it more up-tempo, there's a couple of triplets in there. Rather than that line, I would start it couple of things that just get added on there, some simple little popping grace notes, but that triplet is really the heart and soul of this tune. And there's another one. With all those triplets, it really helps to get that good popping kind of accidental G there as you go from B to C natural to D. Really cool rhythmic effect, and something that's sort of unique to the flute, whistle, and pipes style of instruments. So use it when you can. At least I like to anyway. So here's the whole thing. That's what I would consider sort of a default basic way to play that, with some ornaments and basic melody kind of as is. How would you change it? Well, one would be ornaments. Doing rolls on both of those rather than doing the more melodic line there. You can just roll some of those, sticking on a certain note a bit longer than you would ordinarily. Likewise, starting the whole phrase without the triplet. So you skip the triplet altogether and just do a short roll. Again, options. That's really what this is all about. And as long as you're staying, relatively within the confines of the melody, it's probably going to work. And that's where a lot of trial and error will come into play, particularly if you can play alongside somebody else. You can see how your variations stack up with theirs, and how does it fit with the overall melody. That's where it's helpful to play along with another person or another record. Another fun, simple variation to try, and I would work into any tune, is switching cuts for taps, just to see how it works. So that little 1, 2, 3, 4 note phrase. Actually, two taps. You could throw in one as you land on that G. Or You know, you can stick with the cut. That's just a nice little easy one to substitute and just try. Finishing that phrase has a good option to either throw in a roll or play out the melody. So that's how the line would ordinarily end. And then back around. Or you could just do a roll on that A and sit there rather than A, B, A. Landing on that short roll there. Or you can do a triplet, almost like you're starting out another phrase. You can lean on that note because you're going from the first time through the A part to the second time through the A part. That's how that ends. You've got either a roll or a melodic thing. As you hit that kind of extra tap, lean into it with your diaphragm, with your breath. You can really punch that note up a little bit. Or, kind of a bonus triplet there that wasn't really accounted for. And then cutting that as you come back to the G. One of my go-to tricks, I would say, is if you do something once, do it twice. That phrase got stuck in my head early on, so I've kind of applied that a lot, and it's become a part of my style. And where I would use that here is if you're going to change the melody up, the actual written melody up, and simplify it and put in a roll instead, I would do it twice. So here's where I would do that. Right? So you're hitting both the roll on the B and the roll on the A, as opposed to where you made the melody a lot more complicated. Or not made the melody more complicated, it just is if you play it that way. By doing something once, it could be a mistake. If you do it twice, it's intentional. So I kind of like telling my listener that I'm making a choice. It may not sound great to you, but it sounds good to me, and that's why I'm doing it. That's sort of my game plan. One of my favorite variations is changing up the way that I go from the A part to the B part. You know, what does that transition sound like? Basically, the regular basic melody. Just a stop. You could do that. That works. That's a nice definitive phrasing technique. Or you could connect those two, something like this. Doing a triplet into it. Or you jump the octave with a real strong double tap there, or short roll rather. Sorry, not double tap. Right. So, a couple of options, couple of ways to make things a little bit more interesting each time you go through it. If the first time maybe you just did a hard stop. Then the next time you might link it together. And then, in that case, if I were going to do that very sudden octave jump by way of that triplet, maybe I'm going to simplify the B part. Really only playing 2 or 3 notes, as opposed to... Could make it a lot of notes. And right there's a few things that I like to throw in if I am going to make it more complicated like that. So as I come off the G to the E, doing that little extra kind of throwaway crossing noise. When I hit that really high note, I do like to accent that. I'm pretty confident in these flutes that I know it's not going to break the note, and it really punches it up a little bit. However, you could do a rhythmic variation there, changing up the beat and making that note be accented by way of a rhythmic change as opposed to a more melodic cut. So. On those high phrases, I really do a lot of tonguing there to separate and make it kind of staccato, but I try not to do that every time. That's another type of variation, is staccato and legato, and I haven't mentioned that yet, but very long phrases versus very short staccato phrases. Just another tool in your kit there that you might want to throw in and see how it works. And you know, maybe you do it a certain way 3 times through, and then that 4th time through, now it's all of a sudden really legato, or vice versa. You know, it makes it a lot more compelling, I think, when it catches people off guard, and you've thought it through that way. Yeah, you can use that D, that really kind of strong D that you get out of these flutes, as you throw some extra breath onto those notes. It makes an awesome rhythmic effect that can be easily overdone. Definitely guilty of that a time or two. But if you can rein it in and use it sparingly, it's kind of cool. And doing that same rhythmic thing while also jumping the beat. Even another cool way to do it, which again can be easily overdone. Let's put this guy over here. Keyed flutes. What can you do here that you can't do with the non-keyed flute or the tin whistle? Well, let's see. That's really what I would do in, if I'm using the keys, it's more in the A part. I'll use that back one a little bit, but... So that's the B flat that I'm using in the back here. And then the G sharp. I'm not sitting on that key, sitting on that note, because it doesn't belong in the key of G. So we don't really want to land on it, but it's a great way to slide into those notes accurately and in kind of a cool, bluesy, sort of jazzy way. Right? The second octave, I'll use that on the highest note as an alternative to what I demonstrated before, which is just cutting that note. You could do that, right? Or especially if I'm doing that more staccato line, I'll definitely do it that way. If I'm going to do the more legato version, I'll usually use the key to get into that, followed by a bunch of real quick double taps that I'll throw in there, which give it, I think, some bit of that rhythm, some bit of the groove without having to tongue every note and make it super staccato. That's how you can kind of walk that line. I hope this is of value. I hope this makes sense. Let me know what you guys think. How often do y'all vary things up when you're playing? Have you found that to be the case, that it works in certain environments and not in others? I know we're all getting back to the world of sessions. Hopefully that'll be here to stay. Let me know what you guys do. Do you guys mix it up a lot? Do you practice mixing it up? Because I do. I think that's the most fun part of practicing, is just seeing what else you can do with the tunes. But let me know what y'all think. Hope you guys dig it. See y'all in the next one. Cheers.